Welcome back, everybody. This is Jason Seacrest, and we are going to go through another step-by-step Adobe Illustrator tutorial. Now, we have been working a little bit with the tablet, so I wanted to go back right to the pen tool, and this would be a great little strategy for those of you that are doing logos or just wanted a different option for the pen tool. So this is going to be a little bit different than what we are accustomed to, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So let me just show you what we've done. I have already created my 5x5 format that is standard for every single one of our tutorials. I have already placed in the little soda pop character. Now, if I go into our layers, we have really just a couple things. I have my template layer. I have mine pretty light. You guys can control it to however dark you want it. So if you like it a little bit darker, no problem. So click on the pen tool, and this is how simple this is going to be. All I want you to do is, I'm not doing anything with the shortcuts. All I want you to do is look for sharp corners and or curves. And I don't want you to overthink of it. Like, this is just speeding through this because it's that easy of a decision. I don't have to do anything with my right hand. I'm not clicking and holding. I'm just looking for changes in directions. If I have a curve, I'm looking for the peak of the curve. And then the really easy ones are just like those sharp corners. Now, if I click on Shift X, if it ever starts covering things up on you, just click on Shift X and that'll actually toggle so you'll get back into a stroke. So you don't have to fill and cover everything up every time. And then that was it. So phase one, notice that I didn't do anything dragging. We're still doing our two-step approach. And now we're actually moving on and using the anchor tool. So the anchor tool, the really fun one, is anything that has sharp corners. Notice I can just drag and then just pull it out and just line things up. So this is where, if I was going to teach myself again, that's how fast this is. Just so you're aware, like, this thing flies. So that's where, once you kind of understand that you can just drag it, move it into place, we can just sit there and drag. Then we can come back and do some of the corners. But a lot of them, especially with those sharp corners, you're going to figure out that just me dragging, especially using that anchor tool, that'll actually line things up. So now I can come back. I'm just dragging things out. Again, I'm still on the anchor tool. That hasn't changed. And then I'm just slowly dragging out. If I want it to maintain, notice that it's nice and horizontal. If I want to maintain that, I'm just holding down my Shift. And then I'll usually drag it out, figure out what direction it's going. And then if I ever need to delete another one, I can select it. And then that Shift C will actually get rid of the other one. So notice that I just kind of clicked on it and it went away. Same thing, and you can zoom in as far out as you want. This is a little bit of a faster process just because we've already done most of it, and now I'm just aligning things to match what's underneath. So notice that I am just dragging, and then if I ever have a really sharp corner, just notice that I have the anchor tool and I can go back with both of those. So again, this is super fast, so I don't want you to overcomplicate it. So all we're doing is looking for those corners. And then once I'm all done and I want to kind of check that outside shape, I'm going to click on my Shift X. We use that quite frequently, so just remember that. And then I'm actually dropping down that opacity to right around 10%. So this is where we can just double check. Again, if you need to edit anything, feel free. And I'm going to lock out that layer. And now we are going to be building on the layer above. This is going to be our light layer. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I am going to do it a little bit more on the fly this time, just so you can kind of start seeing the pace of it a little bit. So I'm going to color that one white. I'm going to click over to Shift C. And what's really nice about this one, or this method, especially with the pen tool, is notice that I don't have any danglings. I'm closing off the shapes every single time. So notice on that pen, once I'm done, there's a little circle that you probably won't be able to see on the video as much. But I'm closing off the path, so I don't really have that same frustration of trying to like switch off of it. So I'm just looking for those corners, dragging it into place, and it seems easy, and at a certain point, this literally feels like cheating. And you guys can always change the color. I'm doing a cream just because that's the color of the final outcome. But you guys, if you wanted this to be like hot pink or something where you can actually see it, you'd be able to do that too. And then again, you can always adjust your layer below to however dark you want it. So again, I'm doing the exact same thing. I can go in different phases, meaning I don't have to try and do it all in one fell swoop. And then I'm just lining those things up. So this is super quick, especially if you have a logo that has a lot of sharp corners. You will be able to fly if you just kind of use that drag method. So I can always come back. Notice I just connected right back off where I left it off. That was with the pen tool. I'm still looking for those corners. So usually with the corners, you're just kind of looking for the peak. And again, we're dealing with the computer. So just drag out nice and slow. Notice that I'm not dragging out aggressive. And you can always edit. So usually the first thing I always recommend to beginners is put it down and then adjust those handles. You can always move it back and forth. So that's kind of the fun with once you have it down, you can really have a little bit more flexibility. So that's just a nice way of doing it, especially since there's a lot of frustration because everyone's kind of taught to do it on the fly and you're doing all these little shortcuts and then you're doing all this stuff with your left hand. So this way we just keep everything nice and straight. We're just looking for the putting down the anchors first, and then I'm just coming back and I'm looking to adjust any of those handles on a kind of a second pass. So again, I just flipped over to my anchor tool and I'm just dragging out. And you'll hear on pretty much every tutorial, you'll just hear Shift C almost after every single time I drop down the pen tool. So it's almost immediate that I'm going to be adjusting something. And we are getting close. So notice that phase 1, phase 2. So we're already done with pretty much the second color. We just have that little highlight left. But this process, you should, especially once you kind of get the habit of, hey, I can just drag. It literally feels like cheating. It is a very, very quick process. All right, so we are done with that one. We are on our final step, and we are only 6 minutes into this bad boy. So what we're going to do on this layer is I just want to give you a few more options just so you can kind of see that I've been doing just big fell swoops. So especially, let's say the nose and the eye, will kind of give you some different options where you can break it down into a little bit more strokes just so you can have a little bit more flexibility with it. Now on this left eye, I'm going to kind of just do it the same pace, like one big massive shape. So if you like the idea of just one big massive shape, then you could do it that way. The reason I don't necessarily like that method is a lot of the times, especially as shapes get more and more complex, the lines don't match up, or let's say the stroke, it doesn't read the way you would probably want if we were doing a normal pen tool with the stroke. So this is just kind of a way of combating that with multiple different passes or multiple little shapes. So this one's just going to be one big one, but if you wanted to break any of these up, so if I wanted to do, let's say the nose as one shape, if I wanted to do the under part of the eye as one shape, you'd be able to do that. And I'll show you on the right eye how you would do that. But right now I'm just doing the exact same thing, going all the way around. Remember, if you don't want to build with the fill all the time, you don't have to. And it's the same process. Remember, Shift C, I'm just dragging. The major little decision is I am looking at like what corners. So if you've ever done any of the other tutorials, usually when I'm doing the line variation, so not only am I building, but I'm also adding line variation right now, I'm looking at those ends. So we do that almost in every tutorial where we kind of look at the ends, figure out what type of line variation we're going to do. And that's the same exact decision right now. I'm kind of looking at those ends and then going, okay, they're sharp. So I can either drag on the line itself, or if I think, hey, the peak needs a little bit more attention, then I can come back and then I'm doing just my normal Shift C on the corners. Do a little bit of Pathfinder. I am just doing minus front. Now, as long as you did that highlight second, it will cut out. So if it reversed on you, that just means you went in a different order. So let's just give you the different method here. So notice that I'm building almost like in individual strokes. So I'm doing like the under part of the eye first, and then I can come back and just do that little mini triangle for like the bags under the eye. And so you can break it up this way. So if you think this is more manageable, you're more than welcome to do this, especially like with more complicated shapes. This is kind of my method of choice. So we're just dragging out a circle. So for every single one of you that said, wouldn't it just be easier to draw out a circle? You can draw out an ellipse. So shortcut is L. I'm just lining that up. Now we're going to do a tiny bit of shape builder. I'm just holding down my Alt and my Option, and that's going to be able to delete. And then we are just selecting everything. Let's come up into Pathfinder. I'm going to click on Unite. If you don't see Pathfinder, go up to the top, click on Window, and then you want to drop down and just click on Pathfinder. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to select both of those. Mine is front, and then I'm clicking Shift X, and that'll do the little swap. All right, let's do the same thing. I'm just looking for this. In some of the newer tutorials, I've actually shown you this, where I can come back with my direct selection tool. So that's the white arrow. And then just notice up at the top, there's a curve. So a little button up in the control panel that will do curves. It's really good at really subtle curves. So notice that little nostril. That's why we kind of went up there. But we have been kind of showing you that little method. So if you're having struggles with any of these corners, it's kind of it feels like a cheat, and it kind of does it. It works sort of well, I'll say that. And we're just going all the way around. Make sure you guys are closing those off. Wait for that little tiny circle. And then I'm just dragging out with my anchor tool. And if I ever want one to be the opposite, let me just do a little bit of troubleshooting for beginners. If you are ever dragging out, just notice that I'm switching over to my direct selection tool. That's the white arrow. Shortcut is A. And then I can actually pull out the other one and it won't reset it. So if your handles keep resetting, you want to switch over to your white arrow rather than trying to drag out every time with the anchor tool. So the anchor tool will actually break the handles. So just be aware of that. Most of these we're just using our Shift C. We're just dragging them out so everything stays proportionate. Doing a little Shift C. Let's do our tongue. We are cranking, guys. We are almost done here. So I just want to keep an eye on the time. So notice that it's about 12 minutes and we are 3 colors in and we have 2 shapes left. So we have that little chin. So using a different little approach, I don't think it's slowing anything up. If you guys have a faster pace workflow than 12 minutes, then high five to you guys. So I'm just going Shift X. If that tongue disappeared, you can just send the mouth and you just arrange the back. So usually I go right click, arrange, send the back. We're doing the same thing. We're just kind of moving things around. All I'm doing is pen tool. I'm clicking on Shift C and then I'm just coming back and editing. So I can either grab the handles, I can either create new handles, or I can actually just drag directly on that path. Oh, I forgot about the ear. Let's just finish the ear. And if you guys ever want to try and doing it on the fly, right click, drag, point in the direction you want. If you ever want to go back on itself, that is holding down the Alt option, and that'll actually break it. So the exact same thing with our Shift C, just that's what it's doing. It's breaking that handle. We'll come back at a different point and actually do one of those, but you're going to kind of see that you're not losing out on any time by not doing any of the shortcuts. So let's do this. Let's just finish this little guy up. I'm going to click on that outside shape. I'm going to click on my appearance panel. Look for the sun. If you don't see it, just go under window. And then I want to create a light color, so you can do white or one of the creams. And then the little trick here is we are adding it to the outside. So I'm going to duplicate it again. Another little shape. I'm bumping this bad boy up. I'm just changing out the colors. But notice that little aligned stroke to outside. If you do the opposite, really no harm. It's just you want to make sure that that's going on to the outside. And the last little second edit is we're just double checking that things are reading nice and clean. And that's it. We're all nice and done. Save, save, save. All right, let's do a tiny bit of a takeaway. The first one would be, notice that we just placed down the anchors first. So kind of rule number 1, get your anchors down. Step number 2, really use the anchor tool on the path first. So we're looking for sharp corners, and then we're coming back and we're just pulling those out. That's going to speed up a whole lot of stuff. And then the third one is now I can back and I can adjust those corners. So the little bit more advanced one is I can actually break down shapes. So if everything gets really, really complicated, notice for the face, we kind of went through in different passes. So I kind of did the forehead first, then we did the ear, and then we did the bottom of the jaw, and I just connected them as we went. So you don't have to do the entire thing all at once. I think we'd had some fun today. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of it. If you haven't subscribed, definitely do so. If you haven't said hello, it's my favorite part of the channel. And with that said, thanks for hanging out, and I will see you guys on the next step-by-step Adobe Illustrator tutorial.